President Trump is expected to announce new tariffs on about $200 billion of Chinese imports as early as tomorrow. National security concerns continue over China's theft of U.S. intellectual property as well. The tariffs are expected to be set at about 10%. That is a lower level than the initial 25% rate suggested by the president earlier this year. Let's bring in House Intelligence Committee Chairman, California Republican Congressman Devin Nunes from the World Ag Expo in Tulare, California. And it is good to see you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks very much for joining us.
Great to be back with you, Maria.
A lot to talk about with you. Let me kick it off with China, because I know that your committee has been investigating China from a national security angle. Your response or take on what the president is trying to do here?
Well, I think ultimately we're going to win this trade war. I'm glad that NAFTA seems like it's on better footing now. We've made an agreement with Mexico. I believe the Canadians will come forward. It'll be good to get that solved. The fact that finally we have a president who's taking on China, this has long been needed. We've been running an investigation from the House Intelligence Committee into Chinese activities around the globe. We've talked about it on your show before, but what people need to really focus in on are a couple of items. One is that the Chinese are stealing us blind. So they're beginning to steal our intellectual property, and they're moving it to China. In fact, I think it's very possible within just a few years you will see the Silicon Valleys and the Austin, Texas, and those places where it's kind of a hotbed of think tanks and people who really develop new technology. You could easily see that code be transferred over to China, and you could see China become the new Silicon Valley. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, you have economic subversion that they're doing to countries all around the globe, including what I think many people understand, many Western European countries where they own major financial institutions, power grids, electric companies, ports. They've loaned a lot of money to countries all over the globe. And just this past week, you saw that you had countries in Central America who have long supported Taiwan, the island of Taiwan. They actually pulled their support and switched from supporting Taiwan to China. We actually went and pulled out our ambassadors, I believe, in Panama and Honduras. So this is something that continues to move forward. The president has these tariffs that he's talking about putting on the table and implementing. And I think, look, if the Chinese don't come to the table and, number one, stop stealing our intellectual property, number two, stop dumping products on the market, I don't think we have a choice because if we really wait too long, our military is not going to be able to go up against the Chinese in parts of the globe.
Wow. I want to just take a look at how the Chinese are using their economic strength and putting it toward their military strength. We've got a map here of China's militarized islands, and I know this is something that your committee has been looking at, the fact that China is going into the sea and building islands and saying that this is Chinese territory and then building military sites there. Tell us what they're doing, in particular in the South China Sea.
Well, and all of that started under the Obama administration. So the irony in all this, and it's always good to go back and look at recent history so that we get the facts on the table. So you have the Obama administration who said, we're going to reset relationship with Russia. We're going to actually withdraw troops from Europe because the Russia threat is no more. And we're going to pivot to Asia. Now, what happened? They completely botched Russia completely and now have tried to blame it on the Trump administration. And at the same time, they've militarized. I can't see your map, but I'm familiar with the map. They've militarized building these islands, which are essentially stationary aircraft carriers, where they have complete control, military control, command and control of the entire South China Sea. So it makes it very hard for the United States to keep those major trade waters open in the event of any type of conflict, because on any given day, you have 2/3 of the world's commerce transiting through that region.
Yeah, we want to keep up with you on this. I'm going to keep checking back with you in terms of how your investigation is going. This is real important, and we wanted to make sure to point it out because we talk a lot about trade as it relates to China, but not as much about national security, and that's what you are focused on. Let me move on, Mr. Chairman, and that is to get your update on where you are in your investigation into the FBI, the DOJ, and its handling of the two investigations, Trump, Russia, and the Hillary Clinton investigation. There's been a call from your colleagues for the president to declassify documents related to the Trump-Russia investigation. You've been asking the president to do just that. You also have depositions of important interviews that you've done. Will you declassify those interviews?
Yes, Maria. So, the American people now are beginning to see the walls are beginning to close in on the corrupt officials at the Department of Justice and the FBI. Many of them have been fired. Many of them are on leave. Many of them have been demoted. But you are slowly starting to see this collapse in on them, even though the mainstream media is not covering this because they seem so focused on drinking the Russian Kool-Aid on terms of who's getting indicted by the special counsel, and instead focus on, look, was there any collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, which the answer is no. So we've known this for a long time. Our committee really led this investigation. If you look at a lot of the facts that are now out, it's the facts that we found on the House Intelligence Committee. So we believe that the depositions that we took, I think nearly about 70 people, those need to be published, and they need to be published, I think, before the election. Published, I mean put out for the American people to review, so that they can see the work that we did, and they can see all the people that were interviewed by us and that their answers to those questions. I think full transparency is in order here, so I expect to make those available from our committee to the American public here in the next few weeks.
So let me just go back here. This is breaking news right now. You are going to declassify your depositions of some 70 individuals related to the Trump-Russia collusion narrative.
Yeah, so some of them are not even classified. Some of them are just held at the committee. So, matter of fact, I think 70 or 80% of them are not classified. The ones that are classified, we will have to send to the the Director of National Intelligence to declassify, but we hope that that would only take a matter of days and they don't do their normal foot dragging where they slow roll and we don't get these before the election. But just for the sake of full transparency, because there's so much that's out there that's misinformation or disinformation on this Russiagate fiasco, that we needed this information out before the election. And that's why we've been asking the President of the United States to declassify many more documents as it relates to not only Bruce Orr, but also with the Carter Page FISA.
Will the president declassify those documents before the midterm elections?
Well, look, I think he doesn't have any choice. The president talks a lot about how this Russia investigation has hampered his administration, and I totally agree with the president on that. And if the president wants the American people to really understand just how broad and invasive this investigation has been to many Americans and how unfair it has been, he has no choice but to declassify. And I will tell you, as we continue to move forward here, it's in the best interest of our intelligence agencies to have full transparency on this, because you're really dealing with many Americans who are living in an alternative universe, who have drank this Russia Kool-Aid. There's a large number of Americans, Maria, and I know it's probably not the people watching your show right now, but you would be shocked at the number of Americans who have drank the Russia Kool-Aid, and they actually believe that Donald Trump is under control of Vladimir Putin.
Right.
They actually believe that House Republicans are somehow under the control of Vladimir Putin. I mean, I bet 10, 15, 20% of Americans believe this, and it's
incredible.
Absolutely nuts.